Thanks for joining us. Today, our talk is about YQuad City's indoor and winter training program. And Dr. Peter Sherris is obviously the coach there and has been for a long time. And in that time, if you are familiar with the road, you are familiar that they come to every race prepared fully and have win streaks that are just incredible. Seven straight years at Youth Nationals, the Charles, sending kids to the junior team every year. Obviously something, Coach, you're doing something right, something that is consistent, and you've nailed down some of the specifics of training. I think Jamie does a great job with the technique, and you and Jamie and the other coaches on your staff have done a phenomenal job making a small program an absolute monster on the race course. So today we're here to figure out how you do it, or at least get a glimpse of how you do it. And I'm really glad that you've joined us.
Well, good morning, everybody. Glad you could join us this morning. And again, thanks to Chris and his staff for putting on such a great conference. Even though we're doing it by Zoom this year, we've already had some really great talks so far. So today I'm going to be talking about our indoor and winter conditioning program. Here in Iowa, we have pretty long winters. We're indoors from basically middle of November after we get back from the head of the hooch until the end of March, when we get back from our spring break training camp in the middle of March. So it's a pretty long period of time where we're training indoors. Because of that, we really don't spend any time on the erg at all during the summer or the fall. We'll do a couple 5K pieces in the fall just as like a condition check, but really we keep most of the erging to the winter, since it's pretty concentrated at that point. And as I get to in the talk, we do a little bit of erging like once a week during the racing season, just to stay in touch with the erg, because we do a final 2K test. But again, the majority of our erg training is during the winter. I know a lot of programs that are in fair weather climates where they can row year round, they will maybe do 1 or 2 ergs a week. So it's maybe a more around the year type of training. But again, with us, we primarily focus on it from November to March. So here's an overview of our training schedule. Again, in the fall season, I would say 3/4 of our athletes are with us throughout the year. We do have some kids who are doing other sports, and as myself, a 3-sport athlete in high school, I tried to support the kids who have other interests and play other sports like soccer or basketball or swimming, and we try to balance that to work it out so that they can do those things and then be joining us for the racing season. So in the fall season, we're primarily in small boats and singles and doubles, and mostly doing steady state work and lots of technical work. We do go to the head races, the Charles. We usually race in the doubles at the Charles over our top juniors, and then the head of the hooch, we can take our whole team and everybody can race 2 or 3 times at that race. So once we get back from the head of the hooch, especially if kids have had a long summer and fall, some of the kids who go to summer nationals or do the junior team, and then they keep going into the fall. This is a time where we let them take a break when they get back from the hooch through Thanksgiving. Is basically usually a 3 or 4 week period there where there isn't really structured practices. If it's really warm out like was this year, we'll try to get out a little bit for just some easy rows in the singles, but it's a time where the kids can get some time off, do some cross training, take a little mental and physical break. And then we get into the meat of the indoor season over Thanksgiving break for the kids that are still around. And then for the ones who go away, we really start up right when we get back from Thanksgiving break. So in that, as I mentioned, that goes through the mid-March break. Most of the athletes compete in 2 indoor races. This year we'll probably do 1 in February. It looks like the races are virtual again this year, so we might do either the virtual crash bees or the virtual FISA race. I've got to look at the schedule yet. And then our spring season, since we're pretty far, we're kind of isolated where we are here in the Midwest. We have to travel pretty far to do races. Again, the concentrated training without interruptions, I think helps us. You have to keep the kids motivated, but in the spring, we usually only have 1 or 2 races before we get to regionals. We try to make it out to the Saratoga Invite when we can, and then arrange one other scrimmage before we get to our regional race, and then obviously on to youth nationals. So what we're looking for with the kids is that, especially during the winter season, we don't do as many practices as we do during the spring racing season. We're erging Monday through Thursday and Saturday in the fall, and then we add Fridays in when we get to January. And we're doing the indoor sessions in the afternoon. So it's easier for them to be well rested, but still time management with high school kids is really important. And I think I always try to emphasize to the kids, you want to have some time for social stuff on the weekends, but be on top of your academics and try to get rest, because if they're not tired, they're not going to perform well. And that leads to the other big factor is just being well fueled, especially when we're training in the mornings in the spring, making sure they get a good breakfast and they're not skipping that when they go to school, and when they're training in the early afternoons, getting home and not waiting 2, 3, 4 hours to eat dinner. That's really important for recovery. And then during the indoor season, when we are doing hard workouts 2 or 3 times a week, just, being ready to go for those, really no excuses. And, so in order to have no excuses, you got to be rested and fueled and motivated. And then even when we're doing steady state on the erg, we try to keep the kids focused. We try to mix it up a little bit. We put them on sliders. We have a few row perfects we can put them on, and there's a lot more numbers they can look at when they're on those machines. And just try the steady state, just trying to vary the cadences and the focus so that they don't completely zone out. And then we do take, even when we're inside on the ergs, we do take some video just so they can look at it, video from the side. We do have mirrors in our erg room, so most of the kids can see a on front shot of what they're doing. But we do take some video clips and send them on to the kids. And then I encourage all the kids to keep a training log. It's great for them to sort of track their progress, see what they've done on these workouts in similar years. Again, I just mentioned, so we do have 4 row perfect machines. So on the steady state days, usually we have 12 to 16 kids per session. So if we're doing a steady state session, like 3 times 20 minutes, we rotate through so everybody gets an opportunity to be on a row perfect, and then do another piece on the sliders. And so those are just opportunities to give them feedback. And then, we're really looking to improve 2 things: their aerobic capacity, and we're working on that a lot in the fall, obviously. And in the first month or 2 on the ergs, most of the harder workouts are aerobic, longer based workouts. And then as we get later into January and February, we start to add in more work on their anaerobic and max power capacities. We also do utilize the bike erg, for any kids who are having like anything nagging going on with their back or ribs or glute, we will put them on the bike erg. We don't want anybody trying to push it too hard on the erg, and we try to, prevent injuries before they happen. So we've found that the bike erg, can still give us a split for them to target their training, and most of them also have heart rate monitors. And the splits between the erg and the bike erg are relatively similar. If they start biking for a while, the bike erg splits will tend to be a couple splits faster, but they're pretty similar. And so we can mix in the bike erg segments for the steady state workouts. Also during the indoor season, we're not as rushed and we have a lot more time to do core work. When we're training in the spring where we are in the morning, we're having the kids come down at 5:20, do a really quick stretching, and we're on the water from 5:30 to 7, and then they're rushing off to school. So we don't have a whole lot of time to do core work. When we're doing the indoor workouts, we always have a 10 to 15 minute course session before and after the erg workout. And again, trying to strengthen their core and prevent injury. The most experienced kids, after they've usually been with the program for a year, we get them doing some monitored weightlifting sessions. Andrew, who's our assistant coach, he's always at the Y to oversee those sessions, and he has a background in physical therapy and lifting, so he's really good with doing those sessions. And again, the focus isn't to do really, Olympic lifts or really heavy lifting, more, weight-based, body-based exercises, and then some other machine exercises just to improve strength. And again, the bottom line is injury prevention. So when we're doing our workouts, usually 5 or 10 minutes when they first get in, easy on the erg, just doing some basic stuff that you'd also do on the water if you're in a single. So if we have a steady state erg workout where it's not as important to do a really hard, aggressive warm up, we have them doing some technical stuff, just like arms to back, straight arms, reduce slide, feet out. And then when we have them on the row perfect, we're looking, to try to make sure they have a good smooth power curve, good stroke length. For the boys, in the 140s or higher, girls 130s or higher. And then also looking at the peak power percentage. If we have like some kids that we know are going to be really focused on just doing the quad, we want them really a little bit quicker on the front end, so the hitting peak power at like 38 to 40% is better than in the mid 40s, which is a little bit later in the drive. And I think that tends to work a little bit better for the single. So for steady state, we usually will do 60 to 70 minutes of work for the experienced kids, usually breaking it up into 3 segments. Occasionally, we might do 2 times 30 minutes. Really never ever go more than 30 minutes because, there's a lot of good data out there that you get back fatigue after you've been on the erg for more than 30 minutes consecutive. The only time we, so on the steady state sessions, again, we always will take a break, a couple breaks so they can stretch out their back, walk around and keep hydrated. So most of the steady state stuff we do is at 20, 22 strokes per minute. I'm sure that's what most people are doing. And we'll do some pyramids where we go down 18, 20, 22, 24, varying the cadences around in pyramids to keep it interesting. At 20 strokes per minute, we're usually doing it at training pace plus 12 to 14. I'll get into what training pace is. It's just a little bit slower than 5K pace. But again, if you go much faster than that, then I really feel like it's too hard and you're getting into the wrong zone. I do hear about, coaches like where the steady state is this, 5K plus, 6 or 7 or 8. And it's just, I think that's too hard and athletes won't adequately recover. I want them, able to really attack the 2 or 3 hard workouts, a week. And if the steady state days are really hard, they're not really recovering. So on these steady state sessions, usually it's fairly short rest just to keep the heart rate from falling. So they just have a minute or 2 to do some back stretching and get some water. As I mentioned before, our erg room has mirrors, and so most of the kids are sitting in front of a mirror so they can look at things that we tell them about. So now to the nitty-gritty. So hard sessions, we have about 16 or 17 week indoor season. So I break it down into 3 cycles from late November to mid-March. So Mondays are typically a hard endurance based session. So we'll alternate between a training pace workout and the bread and butter 2 times 6K. Occasionally, instead of doing 2 times 6K, we'll just do 1 10K piece. The Wednesdays or Thursdays, we'll usually do some more endurance or interval work. Usually in that first cycle, it might be something like 3 times 3,500 to 4K or 543K. And then when we get into the second cycle, we're adding in some medium interval work. And then when we get into the third cycle, like that's in late February or March, when we're trying to peak a little bit or tune them up for some 2K racing, we'll start to add in some 1 minute intervals or sets of like 45 seconds on, some definitely higher intensity work. And then, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, usually steady state sessions. And then Saturdays is our other, hard session. Usually it's, interval workouts. So something like 10 times 500 meters or 6 times 750 or what I call countdown type sessions. The countdown type sessions are, like 4K, 3K, 2K, 1K, or 8 minutes down to 1 minute. They don't fit perfectly into like a pure physiologic goal. You're not focusing, you're focusing actually, you're getting multiple systems going in that type of workout. But for I find for like high school kids and in making it competitive and interesting, those workouts that are countdown type are a lot of fun because each piece gets shorter and more intense. And you may be starting out working on aerobic endurance and then finishing with anaerobic work. And so it's not a pure training session in that way, but it's high quality, and I think that it pays off because the kids tend to perform well consistently on these Saturday workouts. And then when we actually do the 750s and the 500s, we do that with teams. Until 2 years ago, we were able to do it where we'd share ergs, so it'd be kind of like a relay. Now if we have a 2-person team, we'll have the 2 people on the same team. They'll be on ergs, apart, but we'll stagger it. So one's going on one piece, and then during the rest period, the other person's going, so they can cheer on their teammate. So you still get the effect of it being like a relay. And then Saturday afternoons, usually we do an endurance weight circuit. The other 2 lifts that we do are in the mornings, and usually those are more medium weights. The Saturday afternoon one is just very light weights, and then basically like a weight circuit because the kids have already had like the one hard, erg in the morning. So training pace workouts. Again, what I call the training pace is essentially what most other people would consider anaerobic threshold work. So it's what in all the training pace workouts I have are about 40 minutes total of work. I found that with high school kids, about 45 minutes of good quality anaerobic work is about what they can do. So training pace workout for most of these kids is about 1.5 to 2.5 splits slower than their 5K piece. Because if you do a 5K all out test piece, for the boys, it's going to be 17 to 18 minutes. For girls, in the 20-minute range. So it's obviously less than 40 minutes, and they're going to be rested and they're going to be sprinting, at the end. So it generally turns out to be a couple splits different. So if you're seeing some of my slides and you base everything off of 5K, you can probably subtract like 2 splits to get it based off of 5K. So again, the training pace sessions, we usually do them on Mondays. Sunday's always an off day. So, they should come in somewhat rested and ready to go on the Monday afternoon workout. And again, we alternate that with a 2 times 6K workout. The first cycle we do of the training pace workouts, we started off with the shortest ones, the 4-minute pieces, 10 times 4 minutes. And then we'll go to a 7 times 540 and a 5 times 8 progression. And again, you'll notice these are on pretty short rest. So it's very aerobic based. So they have very little rest between the pieces. Just the heart rate's not going to come down a whole lot. When we do the 2 times 6K, that's done a much longer rest, like 8 to 10 minutes. So each piece can be a little higher quality. But again, the training pace is on pretty short rest, 45 seconds for the 4-minute pieces. And then when you're progressing up to like 10-minute pieces, it's a couple minutes rest. But again, there's a typo there. It should be cycle 2, where it starts off with the 5-minute pieces and goes up to 10. And then this third cycle starts with the 5s and goes up to 3 times 1320. That's the highest longest pieces. So for the targets, usually the targets are for the first several pieces are right around training pace, and then we'll have the last piece be like an all-out one with a sprint, and I give them 1 extra minute of rest before the final piece. So I have an example coming up, and I'll kind of show you like what a training pace workout looks like. But before I do that, a little bit of talk about targets. So every experienced kid that we have in the group or intermediate level kid has a very specific target 2K pace and a training pace. So on the board, it'll have their 2K and training pace. And both of these are down to the 10th of a second. So, kid might have a 142.7 2K target. And so that initial 2K pace is based on either a recent 2K test, or if they haven't done one, we'll do a 6x750 workout like at the beginning of the season. And I've found that a 6x750 workout is a really good predictor of what they can do for a 2K test. We'll actually do a 6x750 usually a week before a 2K race, and it gives them a really good idea of where they are and gives them good confidence that they can hit their target. The initial training pace, I estimate that off either their last fall 5K test or the results of if they didn't do a 5K test for whatever reason in the fall, we'll base it off of their first training pace session. So for an example, if somebody's last 2K was 7 minutes, which was a 145 average, and then they went 6x750 to 144.6. I'll split the difference and use 144.8 as their initial 2K. And then for a fall 5K, if they're averaging 151.5 and their training pace was at 153.5, again, that's a 2 split difference between the 5K and the training pace, which we would expect. So you'd use 53.5 as their starting training pace. So example, okay. So every piece on the hard workouts, it has an exact target to the 10th of a second. So we'll put up on the board, there'll be a grid so the kids will know what their target is for every piece and what they're trying to achieve. And when we're doing these training pace workouts, the important thing is when they start out, the first 2, 3, 4 pieces is that they go at that target, not going way under. I mean, the problem is, especially high school kids, they're so fired up, they're rested. If you don't give them a target, they'll go super hard on the first few pieces, and then they're fried, and then they can't really go hard at the end of the workout. So, and I'll show on the example how we do that. But one thing is, if we do have a target that's, way above or below a training pace target, then I'll do it on a percentage. So if we're doing like a lot of 1500s and the target might be 2K plus 5 or 6, or we're doing just a few 500s and it's 2K minus 5% on the last piece, then we do it by percentage. So a target for a final 500 might be 2K minus 5%. So for a boy who's like a 620 kid with a 135 2K, that would be 130.3 or 4.7 seconds under his target. But if it was like a novice girl who's got an 840 2K, that's going to be a 6.5 second difference. So it's obviously much harder for a fast boy to go 6.5 seconds under than a girl. So that we will use it on percent if it's well above or below the training pace. So in terms of the current targets, how do we adjust those? So we'll look at how the kids are doing during the course of a week or two, and we make some adjustments after each hard session. So if we have an experienced person who's like going like several tenths of a second under every target, especially the ones at the end of the workout, then we'll adjust their target. And so usually for the experienced kids, it's just a few tenths at a time. But if you are, your 2K is getting a few tenths per second faster over several weeks, that adds up to a lot. So you can, the hope is that they can get incremental progress. There'll definitely be some weeks where they're plateauing, either because they're a little bit more tired or not eating right, or just, general, plateaus occur all the time. Then their targets stay the same. For the newer novice rowers, those are the kids where the decreases are often much bigger. I mean, you might have kids who are going 1, 2, 3, 4 splits faster than your targets, and then you're chopping their targets down much faster. And that's to be expected, especially if they've just started to row in the fall and the indoor season is their first season on the erg. And then I'm much less likely to increase a target. Usually only do that if somebody's been out with an injury and they're coming back, or, you know, now, for instance, we actually have had a few kids who've got the Omicron virus. And so I expect when they get back, they'll be struggling. And so we'll increase their targets a little bit, but generally don't like to do that, because then it's kind of a indication to the kids that you think they're regressing. But I mean, clearly if they've had an injury or been sick, then you adjust their targets up. So they have reasonable goals on those workouts. So here's an example. I will put up on the sheet on the board, there'll be sometimes a quote of the day and what the details are of the workout. So here's a training pace session that's 5 times 8 minutes. We have them come in, they'll erg, they'll do their short core session. Then they'll get back on the erg for a harder 10 minutes or so of erging till they're ready to go. So again, 5 times 8 minutes adds up to 40 minutes. This one here is 1 minute and 45 minutes, 1 minute and 45 seconds of rest. And then we give them an extra minute before the last piece. So the first 3 pieces are right at their target pace. And again, the best counted score that I'll allow for the experienced kid is a half a second under. So they can get a score of minus 0.5. That's the best they can get. So they could clearly go 1, 2, or even 3 splits under on the first couple of pieces if they're going all out. But again, we won't count that because then they'll typically be blowing up at the end of the workout. So usually the next to last piece is usually a little bit quicker. So a couple tenths faster in this instance. And then we're letting any score count because it's the last couple pieces. And then the 5th piece is after the extra rest. And so on that piece, we really want them to attack that. So if they've been kind of going at the aerobic, threshold level, this is the piece where they're going to push past it just a little bit, like it's more like a 5K race effort. So on the last piece in this instance, we'll tell them to rate 1 or 2 beats higher and start out like 1 split faster for the first 6 minutes and then really go after it in the last 2 minutes. So we kind of will score the workouts. We actually have a points competition. We have one short one that runs from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and then the second one that runs from New Year's Day until right before spring break training camp. So it keeps, the kids are really focused on trying to get as many points as they can. And so the scoring is how they do relative to their targets. It's not based on like raw scoring. So, the kids who have the fastest erg scores aren't going to get most points. It's the basically based on how you're doing versus your own specific targets. So in this instance, we'll give bonus seconds if they've hit 4 out of their 5 targets, and even more bonus seconds if they hit all of them. So again, it's really important that you pace yourself so you can go faster at the end of the workout, and the bonuses are predicated on hitting every target. And then we'll score the workout with some general points. And again, you'll see that only if you don't finish or you're way above will you get negative points. And then as you go further under your targets, you get more points. And then sometimes we'll give bonus points if they PR'd for the workout. So for a training pace workout, if their average for all the pieces is better than their PR, we'll give them some bonus points. And then there's usually some minor bonus points for the last 2 minutes or sprint on the final piece. So 2 times 6. Yes.
Peter,
yep.
What do you get if you win?
What
are the prizes?
Usually something like pogies or a bow light or something like that. Something that they can use. I don't make any like elaborate head of the fish trophies. I guess I'm just not that creative. But usually, it's a fun. It's something along those lines. Yeah. And
2 more questions for you. We were talking about rest a few seconds ago. For your 6x750 meter pieces, what kind of rest do you give between the 6x750s?
Oh, when we're trying to gauge for the 2 times 6, yeah. Usually that is a 2-to-1 rest. So 3 in 3.5, usually 3.5 minutes.
And do you do anything with ratings? Do you have any caps, or how do you dictate the ratings?
On the 6x750, I just tell them that, generally do each one around their 2K pace, but I don't penalize them if they go a little bit higher. But generally, if you're trying to gate, basically get a 2K prep estimate, yeah, you want to have them going at their race rate to maybe 2 beats higher, and with, again, 2-to-1 rest. So for most of the guys, like 140 to 145. So that's a 3.5 minute rest we use. So that's a fair amount of rest. But if you want to make it a good, predictor, I mean, if you start to decrease the rest to like 1.5 or 2 minutes, the overall average you're going to get is probably a little bit slower than what they'll be able to do for 2K.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Yep. So 2x6K, I know a lot of programs may do it. I certainly know a lot of college women programs. It's kind of a bread and butter thing. So I know some programs will do 22, 24, 26, and then maybe 24, 26, 28 on the second one. So I have the example I'm providing here is where we start off at 24. I do note at the bottom, sometimes we do a first one that starts at 22 and goes up to 26. So again, we're doing that first piece. These pieces are rate restricted, and there's much longer rest between the two pieces because it's a lower rate, a little bit more muscular, and to make the second piece a little faster and higher quality, you need the longer rest. So in this example, like the first piece, the first 2K is 24, the second's at 26, and then the last two is at 27 or 8. Then we take that score, and then we're hoping they're going to go a split faster on the second piece. So in this instance, we will have them then set the second piece for 2750, where they're doing the first 2750 at 26 and the second 2750 at the 28, and then again the last 500 is all out. We let no rate cap typically. There'll be some days where we'll keep it rate cap, but in this example, we let them go open. Again, I find that like with especially boys, they really like to go for it, and to allow them 1 or 2 opportunities every week to just sort of open it up at the end. That help, it just pays dividends in the spring, that they just know how to sprint. By doing the open on the last piece of the workout, they just develop that ability to sprint well. And so in this instance, the last 500 is open rate. So for the targets, again, since we're basing it off of training pace, and training pace is a time-based thing. So, the training pace is like what you can do for 40 minutes. Now, when you're doing a 2x6K, the boys are going to go a lot faster than the slow girls. So there's kind of a grid for this. So for the faster boys, where their training pace is under 147, their target is going to be faster than, say, a girl. And you can see down here, I go all the way up. So we have some novice girls who are above 215, and we actually will just cut it off at that point and set them for time. But there's basically an increase of about 2.5 splits based on the amount of time they're going to be on the erg. Because you can see, you'll be going for 28 minutes for some of the novice girls, whereas some of the guys are going to be at, going 21 minutes or less. So that adjusts for that fact. So that's why the targets are easier. And again, on this workout, like we will score it versus their targets, and then who's the most under gets the most points. So like on this workout, you can see down here, we have points, 100 points for the winner, and then down, so the top several people get points. And then if their 2x6K average is a PR, regardless of how they rank on the workout, they'll get PR bonus points. So an example for a Saturday session. So, the 10x500 session. So again, you'll have targets for this, and you look at this, think, well, the first 6 pieces, especially if you have teams of 2K minus 1 seems, awful easy. Yeah. And again, you could have kids going crazy on the first couple and being 2K minus 4 or 5. And actually, even though we will only count the best score as 0.5 under, when we have the newer kids and novices, even though this is like in bold letters on the board, they'll still do it. And the newer kids and novices, they'll go like 2K minus 5 or 6 for the first 2 or 3, and then they're bonking and hitting the wall at the end. But I mean, the more experienced kids, after they've done this workout 4 or 5 times, they realize that, you know, doing the pacing is important so you can finish really strong in the last 3 or 4. So the targets get progressively harder. The 7th and 8th piece is a little harder. The 9th piece is even harder yet. And then we'll give a couple minutes extra rest before the 10th piece. And that's pretty much where the kids can completely go for it. And if they've been hitting their targets, they can make that last target. So for example, we'll put teams together. Now this is like, kind of shows maybe people how like I'm kind of very detailed with the numbers. So I'll sit down, I'll look at everybody's 2Ks, and we'll make teams. And so I've changed, so everybody, you can see here teams of 2. So WS plus TW. So in parentheses is what their 2K target is. And then the second number is what the 2K minus 5.5%, what their target is for the last piece. So if in parentheses they're at 37 is their 2K target for the first 6 pieces, they know they got to hit 136. And then the last target here, they know like when they get to the 10th piece, what their target is. So I look at the teams, I add up like what their projected time would be. And like in this instance, we're using a time, and then there's a changeover, like that's how long it is between like when they change over the erg. So this is what they're setting. If they're sharing an erg, like they would previously, they'd set the rest time for 105. Now, you know, if they're side by side on the ergs, they would add their 2K time plus the changeover. But anyway, the way it works out is like you can add it up into the far column, and what they're how long it's going to take them to do all their pieces, and then adding up the changeover. So basically I have it so if that, as you can see, I've here, not everybody's doing 500 meters. Some people are doing a little less and some are doing a little bit more. I do that so that you can actually tell who's winning the relay. So at the end of each 2-person cycle, like whoever gets off the erg first is the person who's like leading based on how they're going against their splits. So you can tell exactly how you're doing. And so sometimes we'll have 10 teams going. And when we get to the end of like the 9th piece, there'll be only a 2 or 3 second difference between the top 9 teams. So it's really, really competitive, and you can tell how you're doing against the other team. So this workout's a lot of fun, tons of energy in the erg room when we're doing it. And we also will combine boys and girls on these teams. So it's kind of a co-ed day. One other workout we'll do, what we call like a countdown workout. So again, it's kind of a mix of aerobic and anaerobic work. So again, this is like the workout we just did on January 1st. So it's a 9 down to 1 minute countdown workout. So I tell the kids to kind of think of the 9 down to 5 it's based off a training pace. That's kind of the aerobic portion of the workout. It's basically 35 minutes of work at aerobic capacity, and the rest is pretty short, 2 to 3 minutes, and then the rest jumps up to 5 minutes when we do the last 4 pieces. So the 4, 3, 2, 1, that's higher intensity, and it's based off of the 2K. So you can see the targets are based off of 2K. And the first set of pieces, you know, the cadences are restricted. So like the 9, 8, 7, we were at 24, 25, 26, 27. So it's definitely some muscular endurance work. So, but again, this is a fun workout, and we'll actually do this with teams. So we'll put teams together of like three or 4 people. And so everybody's times counts on the first 3, but then in the middle part of the workout, where the kids are getting really, really tired, we'll allow people to throw out 1 or 2 times, and we only count the top 2. So some of the team, they'll get a little strategizing on this one, because the kids who know they're tired, they'll say, okay, well, on this next piece, I'm just going to go a couple splits over, and I'm going to be the time that drops out. But the thing is, so it doesn't become a workout where the kids are kind of quitting on one piece. You can only go 3 splits above your target. If you go above that, it counts. You can't like completely this row steady state on a piece. If you're struggling, you have to be within 3 splits to have it be a throw out. And then on this type of workout, again, we'll give consistency bonuses if they're hitting like, most of their pieces, 2 points, hitting almost all of them 5, and more points if they hit all the targets. We do give some penalties if they're going above the rate cap, because again, it's a big advantage on the longer pieces. If you're supposed to be rolling 24 and you roll 26, obviously much easier to hit your targets. So again, on this type of workout, we'll actually give more points for the team aspect. And then if you're not on the winning team, there are still some individual points to be had. So again, sometimes these Saturday workouts, the team points are worth more than the individual points. So it makes it a little bit more fun to be focused on the team competition. So again, erging is hard work and not a lot of fun, but trying to make it at least competitive fun. So questions about test pieces, what we do. So at the end of the first cycle in the fall, we've only been on the ergs for 4 or 5 weeks. Like the couple days before the kids go away for Christmas break, we do our power piece. So it's the only time they're ever really on the erg for more than 40 minutes straight. 10K, occasionally we'll do a 10K, but this is the one time, and it's basically an unrestricted 1 hour piece. And then at the end of the second and third cycles, we do those couple indoor 2K races. And at the end of our third cycle, right before we go away for spring break, we'll do a baseline 5K to see how people are doing. And then a week or 2 after we get back from spring break, we'll redo one to see where people are. And then we actually do one final 2K test a couple weeks before our Midwest regionals. So in the spring, unlike the fall, in order to keep in touch with the erg, what we typically will do after like an easy afternoon technical session, we'll do 4 or 5 times 750 meters. So the targets on those, the average for like a 5 times 750 workout is like 2K minus 1 or so. So we're doing some work at just a little bit below 2K pace. And so it helps them sort of know where they are. And so when we do the final 2K test, it's not a complete guess how they're going to do. So for the hour power, how we do that? Again, I give them a pretty easy target on this one. Like about 90% of the kids go under it. So we use training pace plus 4.5% and base. And again, the points reward just mainly everybody gets 30 points for just finishing it without any stoppages. And unless you're way above your target, you're going to get positive points. And there's bonuses, so the kids who hit if all 20 of the 3-minute splits are at or under their target, they get a consistency bonus. And I'd say more than half of the kids get that because again, the target's pretty easy and people go right out on their target split and they're able to hold it. And then the second half of the piece being negative splitting, again, we don't want them going out super hard. So about 80% of the kids are faster in the second 30 minutes. And then there's a bonus if they can go under their training pace for the last 3 minutes. So finishing strong. Our 5K test piece, again, since we've been doing a lot of training pace work throughout the indoor season, we kind of know what their training pace is. So when we have them do the 5K, we can give them a very specific target. Again, these targets are pretty relatively easy. Most of them will go under it. So again, you'll see like when we do a 5K test, since it's being based off of training pace, the target's going to be slightly lower for the boys who have fast targets. So for the boys who are going to be around 17 minutes for a 5K, their target is to go a couple seconds under the training pace. And actually, again, like I said earlier, training pace is usually a couple seconds above the 5K. And you can see here, I'm having for most of the people, it's training pace minus 1 to 1.5. And again, that's because when we do the test piece, I want most of the kids to go under their target. So generally with these are pretty conservative targets for a 5K piece, and about 80 to 90% of the kids will score under the target. And again, since we've done enough training pace workouts and stuff, when we do the 5K piece, they know what their target is, and you'll see most of the kids in the first couple thousand meters going right out at their target. It's pretty rare to see any of the kids flying, dying, going way fast. And again, since they're doing so much work with targets, it helps with the pacing. And so I guess that's one of the things people say about our crews when they see us racing is how steady our pacing is and stuff. And I do think some of that's because of just how much targeted work we do on the erg. And so they just know what they're capable of and what the effort level is to hit a certain, pace. For the hard and medium intervals, I wanted to give one example of that. So here's a workout again, and not a huge amount of volume. It's just, quality over quantity. The first, few targets are pretty easy, but they have rate caps. So 3 times 1500, 2 times 1250. Again, when I did this workout in college, it was 5 times 1500, but I found, again, if you make the last 2 maybe a little shorter and a little faster, it's just easier for high school kids to do. So again, the first couple targets are pretty easy, and they're rate capped, and the fastest score you can get is just 1 second under the target. Again, we want the kids not to go all out on the first couple. We want them to be able to get faster on each piece. So it's a very specific target on each one. And then as you can see, the fourth and fifth piece of this workout, the 1250s, the fourth piece is worth double, and the fifth piece is worth triple. So again, if you're able to really crush those last 2 pieces, you're going to get rewarded more. And then again, we'll give some bonuses for the kids who make 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, and the kids who get PRs. So there's incentive to do well at the end of the workout and to have your overall average be a new PR. And then what other workouts we do? There's we do especially in November, December, and in January, we'll do some what I call muscular endurance work. So it's like hard effort at lower cadences. So one I call builder pieces, and I'll give an example of that. It's one continuous piece for like 35 or 40 minutes where the cadence starts fairly low and you're allowed to work it up a little bit. And then we do some pieces, like we'll do 3 separate pieces, and we'll cycle, where they're going really hard for 3 minutes at like 21 or 2, and then 1 minute up at 25 or 6, and then they cycle through at that. And so those are that's basically, this is close to full power work at lower cadence. So what I call a builder piece, and why do I call it a builder? Because you're gradually building up the effort and the cadence just a little bit. Again, I found if you just try to have the kids pound away for 30 minutes at 22, it's just so monotonous and so boring that it's just hard to make it really good quality. And it's just at a really low cadence, it does put a lot of wear and tear on the kids' joints if they're going 22 the whole time. So here's an example of a 40-minute builder piece. And so if we set the split length for 630, so they're doing 6 segments of 630, and each time the cadence is going up 1 beat, and you can see their targets gradually dropping a little bit. And then the last minute is still rate capped at like usually 30, and they can basically see how hard they can go for 1 minute at 30. Now this one here, you'll see there's like 5 separate targets. When we are doing low cadence full power, there's clearly an advantage to heavier kids. So this is one time where we'll actually factor in what the weight of the kids are. Again, we only will like have the kids weigh in a couple times during the whole indoor season. We will give them a weight adjusted score on the 5K test, but again, there isn't a whole lot of focus on the weight. But clearly, if you have a 190-pound boy with a fast target, and then you have a novice, girl who weighs 100 pounds, it's going to be way easier for that guy to do well at 22 strokes a minute pounding away than the girl. So here, there's like a range of targets, so that heavier, stronger guys are generally like 2 splits faster on each target than the much lighter kids. And again, it's important for them to hit the rate, so they'll get a penalty if they go above the cadences on this workout. And then the last thing we do is, and we start to do this a lot in late January and February, are what I call blasters. And so this is like neuromuscular firing and conditioning. So it's good for explosive power. And so we'll incorporate this like maybe once a week when we do the steady state days. So we'll have the kids warm up a little bit, and we'll have them do these before they get into the steady state workout. So the examples are like 4 times 150 meters, or 4 to 6 125s, or 5 to 800 meter pieces. So they're very short, 20 to 30 second bursts with pretty decent rests, since you're only doing a few of them. So this is where they have a chance to just really go after it. I found that, if you just allow the kids to go nuts with a cadence in the 50s or 60s, in the form, it just isn't there. So we do have a rate cap usually on the first several ones at like 40 strokes per minute. And then I'll let them do the last piece, like typically the last piece open rate. But again, this is just, looking for max power in good form. And again, we will do this like the second half of the indoor season. So, again, we try to have the obviously each of these hard workouts, the kids have goals for them, like very precisely written up, for them to try to achieve. But it's important for them to have like bigger seasonal goals. So we always sit down, we have a form, we sit down with the kids between the head of the hooch and Thanksgiving during that off period, or just when they get back, and they fill out goal sheets, for what they want to achieve individually and as a team. And then myself and Andrew, meet with all the kids individually to go over those goals. And then again, we encourage the kids to keep their own log of what they're doing, because I think it's helpful, and I think most of the top kids, do that. So again, the indoor season, just if you have a really strong indoor season, it sets you up to have that level of fitness when you get out on the water in March and early April. There's usually a lull for us, when we get back from spring camp. The water and the cold, it's really tough for like the first 2 or 3 weeks we're out on the water. And, the fact that, the kids know that we've worked so hard in January and February and March, I tell them, well, if we kind of lose a little bit of, fitness here, we're just trying to get the time on the water, that once we get into better conditions in mid and late April, that we're, with all those miles done during the winter, we'll be able to ramp up like we need to, and peak for late May and June, so we can be as fast as we possibly can be at Youth Nationals. The last thing I'd like to add before I close is, again, we do have some athletes who do other sports, and so we try to mix, either they're off for a period of time during the indoor season, or they kind of come when they can. So sometimes the swimmers can only make it a couple times a week, or we have a really good girl right now who's doing basketball. She'll maybe only come a couple times a week. And I think it's important to try to balance that for those kids who are doing other things. But anyway, any questions, Chris, from people?
Yeah, dude, thanks a lot. This is great. There are some questions here. For the last couple of minutes, I think we have 6 minutes. Can you talk briefly about software or different platforms that you might use to track all this, or do you hand make it on an Excel? How do you do that to keep the data for each athlete?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of was old school for several years, and I just we'd write everybody's name up on the whiteboard, and I'd record everybody's score on a whiteboard, and then just when I was done, just on a Microsoft Word document, just add up the results. When I had an assistant who came 3 years ago, he was really into excellent with Excel spreadsheets, and then he got everything onto an Excel spreadsheet that the kids could then access online. We basically called it Erg Central, I think. And actually, it was perfect timing, because after he had been with us for the several months, we went into the COVID issue. And so we are actually, during the couple times we were completely shut down, we were able to still do all these workouts because he had them on a Google, an Excel spreadsheet in real time, and everybody could still do their workouts from their home gym or home. And after they did each piece, they would send them a screenshot. And so everybody could actually see how they were still doing with the workout in real time because they had it on this, Excel spreadsheet. But so we have it on now online, so the kids can look in, and then also all their PRs and then the overall points totals are all there, so they can see it.
And I'll tell you, I think having the kids keep a journal is empowering for them to have ownership, right? They take agency over it because they're constantly tracking themselves and their numbers that are relevant to them. So I think that that's a great plan as well. Here's the next question. Are the percentages a percentage of time or power, watts?
The percentage is percentage of time. So if you have, if it's 2K minus 5%, if their 2K is like a minute and 40, 5% under is 5 seconds. So it'll be 135. It's based off of 2K split, not wattage.
Okay, let's see here. Where did we go? Trying to find you. Next question we have. So in the beginning, you had mentioned that you don't go past 60 minutes, or you don't go past 20 minutes, but a lot of these examples of workouts, they are more than 20 minutes long, like the hour of power. Do you do that often, or what's the balance that you strike between trying to keep things under 20-minute pieces and throwing in a couple here and there?
Oh, well, I said that for steady state,
right.
We try to keep the steady state workouts to like 20 minutes per session, or if we're doing 2 times 30, so that never really longer than 30. And I did, there's the hour of power is like the exception. Again, since they're racing that pretty hard, I don't, where I find like the most compressive forces are on the back is if you're doing low cadence, steady state, where they're doing a lot of layback at the lower rates. There's definitely more back fatigue on that. When they're doing the hour power, most of the kids are going at 26 to 30. There's not as much layback. They're sitting up, and I've never really had anybody complain to me about their back bothering them after they do the hour power. Usually they're just wiped out. It's been a hard piece, but generally not. And then the builder pieces, the builder pieces will only maybe do one of those every other week. And like I said, they're usually 35 to 40 minutes, and it's just one piece. And then there's a long, easy cool down before and after. So, 135 or 40-minute effort or 10K, usually they can, it doesn't cause too much, back issues, because again, the cadences are above 20.
Okay. Is it the same drag factor for all, or does it vary for weight?
The lighter kids will usually have a drag factor of like 110 to 115. Some of the boys are maybe in the 120, 125 range. When we do the blasters, I'll usually have them put a little bit higher drag, like maybe 130, because those are just really short bursts. But nothing crazy. Like I don't have them setting the drag at like 160 or 180 to do these like max power pieces.
All right, let's keep going with this. Do we have, you could simplify your training template. How many AT workouts, transportation workouts, mid steady state and hard steady state workouts do you do per week?
Yeah, usually 2 AT and 1 like medium or harder interval on average. Yeah. And then the other 3 sessions are steady state. So.
And how do you keep this scoring system simple enough to communicate with your kids and families?
Oh, well, I mean, at the end of each workout before they leave, they know how they did we'll have it on the board, like who finished first, second, third, fourth. So they'll take like a little screenshot, like with their phones now, so they know how they did. And then on the left-hand column of the whiteboard, we have the summary of the points competition, how they're doing, for the, and again, the one thing about the points that I didn't specifically put in here, as the indoor session, as it goes closer to the final test piece, the points just go up a little bit more. So like at the beginning of January, the points will be relatively low. By the time we get to February and mid-February, they're maybe twice as much. So the point is that as you get closer to that final March 5K, there's more reward for progress. So that's the points are worth a little bit more as you get closer to the end. So if you're a little bit behind, so it also is so that if you fall a little bit behind in January, you don't lose hope, because February and March, the points will be worth a little bit more.
Yeah. You still got plenty of opportunities coming up.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay, let's see here. Do you have any kids that struggle mentally with getting scored on every piece? What do you try to do to combat that, if so?
Yeah. There's some kids, yeah, that don't like to be looking at a split all the time. So some of the pieces, like the low muscular endurance ones, I'll actually have if they're having issues with that, we'll have them row screens down, so they don't have to look at the screen, and so that sometimes helps those kids for a mental break. And also, in some instances, that's actually kind of surprising. If you have them row their screens down, they some of them will actually do better than if they're looking at the splits the whole time. So you're exactly right. There are a few, there's a few kids who like get a little bit of stress, I think, looking at the number too much.
I'll tell you, earlier on you mentioned, a lot of people mentioned how disciplined, I think is the right word, your kids are when they get to the races and stuff. And I think there's something to be said for this, this methodology through the winter. Sure, I think you're going to have a lot of kids that have trouble looking at the screens from year to year, but this actually might be something to help strengthen that issue right there.
Well, one thing that I find is like, by making the first targets on a workout relatively easy, and is that they get comfortable, like, okay, this is a good firm 95 to 98% effort level, and they know what they can do, and then if they're on a good day, then they can ramp it up the last couple pieces of the workout, and most of the time they can do that, versus this coming in not having like a really specific target, and they go really hard for the first few, and almost all the time they're like kind of limping in on the last piece or two. So having these specific, relatively doable targets at the beginning of each workout, where they're actually penalized if they go too fast, it kind of forces them to do a reasonable pacing, and then be able to finish strong.
So I just so you all know, I'm putting something in the chat right now that'll bring you to a folder that has a lot of various sheets. You may need permission from me, but it's in there. I've collected a lot of sheets, Excel sheets, that help you track athletes, and individualizes it. So when they put in their 2K goal, it'll generate all the other factors and zones that you want to be in. So for the people that are listening, I put that into the chat. Is Erg Central free, and does it require a lot of work to enter data?
Well, I think it was just a link that Nick set up on Google, that you have to have he has to give you a password to get in. So each person on our team has a ability to go in and basically look at our team's data. Yeah. So I don't have the exact answer to that, because I'm not the technical guru on the team. But I think that I don't think he had to pay to set it up. I think he was just using Excel software.
All right, we're gonna bound through these really quick, so I've got to get the next one set up for Connie Draper. Is all your steady state TP plus 14 to 18?
Well, Most of the steady state, yeah, is probably plus in the 12 to 16 range. There are some days like on Friday, when we add in Friday mornings, which we're doing now, it's what I call recovery steady state. We'll do training pace plus 16 to 18 or even 18 to 20, because we usually fall it with like a yoga session. So Friday mornings is the one time we have them come down in the morning at 5:30 in the morning. They erg 2 times 25 minutes at this really easy recovery pace, and then do a half an hour yoga session.
Interesting, Peter. Back when Marin's men's eights were dominating everything for that 4 or 5 year span, I was talking to Graham Willoughby, who was coaching at the time, and I said, "Dude, what is going on? What are you doing? What did you change?" And he said, "You know, Chris, everybody asked me this." He said, "The only thing I do different is I added yoga." He's like, I just don't have injuries. They have more body awareness. They're more in tune with their body. He said, I don't drill differently. I don't train differently. I don't do anything different. I just added yoga twice a week. And so it's funny that you just said yoga. And, that leads into a question, the last question, which is 2-part. Do you gradually add volume for younger rowers, or does everybody do the same workout? And when you think about injury with the younger or more novice athletes, do they get the same? Is there any correlation, or you're not seeing injuries? How does it work the way you do it with your athletes?
Yeah, the novices who are just starting up, and this is their first indoor season, we have them only come 3 to 4 days a week. And on the steady state workouts where the experienced kids are maybe doing 70 minutes of work, they only do about 50. So if we have a workout where the experienced kids are doing 2 times 25 and then a 20-minute piece, the novices will only do 2 times 25, and then they're done earlier and they can do the post core and go. And usually they're like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. So they have Tuesday and Fridays off. So again, if they've just started to row this past summer and fall, yeah, they have definitely less volume. And then it depends on the kid. If it's a novice who's just started out and they're already a sophomore and junior in high school, and we've had a few of them, then they'll transition to doing more sooner. But for the kids who are in like junior high, middle school novices, yeah, usually just 3 or 4 sessions a week during the indoor season.
Well, and I think there's also something to be said for individually, that communication that you have with each athlete, that they're each different, and just being aware of where they're at and fine tuning it, as needed, right?
Well, and it's definitely easier to do that because we have a smaller team. I mean, like this, this last year, in numbers have kind of drifted down because of COVID. I mean, we've only had like 8 to 10 boys and 15 to 20 girls, so it's a much smaller group, so you can definitely have that flexibility.
Well, I'll tell you what, for such a small team, you certainly bring the lumber every weekend. So it's a standard I think a lot of people would like to aspire to be at. Thank you very much, Dr. Sherris. I'm going to have to get out of here. Thank you all for joining us. If you want to grab that link real quick, that folder has more stuff than you could have imagined. It's got, 23 other countries, training programs, all kinds of stuff in there. So have fun. I'm sure there'll be questions. I hope you have a great day. There's still 2 more rounds of great talks. And so I really appreciate everyone taking the time out of these weekends to do this. So it's been great having you.